and then they figure out I'm not analyzing them. What I'm going to share with you today is all about principle. When I talk about principles, I'm talking about natural laws, eternal laws like gravity. You never get up in the morning and think, I wonder if gravity's on today. It tends to be, right? And so it's in your best interest to understand that principle so that you don't go walking off of cliffs. Now, I'll get to the specific principle, but before that, I have something I wanted to share with you. New Year's Day. Many of us were in church, right? Where I was, New Year's Day was not the Sabbath. The Sabbath had occurred the day before. My wife and I were in Israel. But on New Year's Day, we had an opportunity to visit the Mount of Beatitudes. And I got to read the Sermon on the Mount. On the Mount. How awesome is that? And it brought new insights to me that I hadn't noticed before. As a psychologist, my job is to illuminate the obvious. This is cool. I get paid to tell people things they already know. But there's a lot of obvious things that are completely unnoticed. Obvious but unnoticed. Let's go there for a minute. Like your shoes. Can you feel them? Now that I've mentioned them, right? Do you notice how they were just kind of, where were they before I mentioned them? You didn't notice them. Or the fact that we are speaking English. Anybody notice? It's obvious, but unnoticed until I call it to your attention. Do you see where we're going? Many of the processes that are going on in your own mind are in that space. They're totally obvious. You'll see them immediately after I call them to your attention, because that's what I do professionally. Okay, so I will tune you in to various things that are going on in your own mind. You can't turn them off any more than you can turn off gravity. And you're not even aware of them until I call them to your attention. This is so much fun. For me, I mean. I hope you have fun too. But tune in. So go back with me to the Mount of Beatitudes for a minute. In fact, if you have your scriptures with you, whip them out. And let's go to Matthew chapter 6. Actually, no, let's start on chapter 7. There's one verse at the beginning of chapter 7. Verse 1. Some of you are there, you're already seeing it. Judge not. And every time I read that, I think, crap. I suck at that commandment. Because I'm constantly judging. And so are you. Aren't you? I connect with, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's gravity. I'm saying you can't turn it off. Will you check in with that? You're constantly judging, aren't you? You judge yourself pretty harshly sometimes. You judge the people you hang out with. You judge your circumstances. You judge your past. You judge the people in your ward. You judge the economy. You judge the government. You're judging me. It's cool. I'm judging you. Just notice it. Look, I'm not here to tell you how to think. I don't have that kind of authority. But I do want you to see that you are, and one of the things that you're thinking about is judgment. And you can't turn it off. So here we are on the Mount of Beatitudes, and the Lord is telling us, judge not. Does anybody have the Joseph Smith translation handy? It's in the footnotes.
Judge not unrighteously.
Thank you. Did you hear that? Judge not unrighteously, but use righteous judgment. Okay, that's the clarification we get from a modern day prophet about what the Lord really was saying. Because I think that Jesus was the best psychologist ever. And I think he knew that we're going to judge. I think he knew that. So whatever he said in Aramaic or Hebrew or whatever language he was speaking got translated into judge not. Joseph Smith cleared it up for us in English to be judge not unrighteously. Okay, keep that in your mind somewhere. Now let's go back to chapter 6. You know one thing, it's so funny because sometimes when I realize things, it's like, well, shouldn't I have known that? But there's obvious things that are unnoticed. And what I noticed when I was sitting on the Mount of Beatitudes, reading the Sermon on the Mount, I like to emphasize that part. It was just so cool. I realized that Jesus did not speak in chapters. Now, why didn't I notice that before? I don't know. Well, because our scriptures are divided into chapters. He was just speaking. And so whatever he said just before that in our chapter 6 was a continuous flow of sermon from the Lord. Now, I don't know why that was important to me, but if we back up to chapter 6, and let's go about halfway through the chapter to... I wanted to emphasize this to you guys. Verse 23 caught my attention as a psychologist. It says, well, actually, let's go to 22 first. This is chapter 6. Verse 22, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, that's an interesting concept. Thy whole body shall be full of light. That's cool. Look at verse 23. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? And as a professional psychologist, I'm thinking, wait, full of light? Full of darkness. Anybody ever heard of depression? Does that sound kind of like full of darkness? Interesting. So that caught my attention. Now look at the next verse. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and other gods. It says mammon. I think that's what it means. Now, this is interesting to me because, all right, just roll with me on this, okay? Do you hear the voices in your head? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I know. It freaks people out when a clinical psychologist asks them about the voices in their head. But you hear them, right? Now, there's some of you who are like, voices? What voices? I don't hear any voices. That's the voice I'm talking about. You hear them. Now think about what the Lord said when he said you can't serve two masters. Do you remember the old cartoons when they had a little shoulder angel and a little shoulder devil? And they're both trying to get your attention? I think that's more real than we realize sometimes. Okay? And you hear the voices. Now check it out. It doesn't mean you're crazy, necessarily. We'll just withhold judgment on that for a minute. But we all have them, okay? And you hear these, and there's at least 3 voices in your head. There's you right in the middle, okay? And then you got the little angel and the little devil. We'll just simplify it to be those 3. Fair enough? Now, do you believe that our Heavenly Father can place thoughts into your mind through that little still small voice? Yeah. Does it make sense to you that maybe the adversary can do something like that too? Okay, connect with that for a minute. So, Sister Nelson, Wendy Watson Nelson, who is a brilliant mental health professional as well as the wife of the prophet, she wrote a book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. Anybody read that one? If you haven't, put it on your list somewhere. It's really worth the read. And in that book, Sister Nelson points out, we can discern which voice it is we're hearing with a simple discernment tool, and it's a question. The question is, whose agenda does this support? That's Sister Nelson's discernment tool. But to use the tool, we have to understand the dynamic that's happening in our own head. Whose agenda does this support? Okay, let's go to the little devil first. That's sitting right here on your shoulder, okay? What's the devil's agenda? What, to deceive? To make us miserable. 2 Nephi chapter 2, verse 27. For he seeketh that all men might be miserable like unto himself. Are we clear about the devil's agenda? Okay, and we even learned a little bit about his strategy. He will deceive. Will he lie to you? Absolutely. Try to deceive you? All right, let's go over to the angel for a minute. What's the angel's agenda? To uplift you? I like that. To testify of Christ? Will the angel lie to you? Will the angel try to deceive you? No, all those things are against the angel code. So be clear about that. Now, so the angel's agenda, if you go to the same chapter in 2 Nephi, men are that they might have joy. Is it fair enough to say that's the angel's agenda? Okay, let's go to the third voice. Which one is the third voice? It's you. What's your agenda? What do you want? I heard Joy over here. Can we get a second? Consider this for a minute. Happiness, joy, peace, love. You guys on board with this? And if you have happiness and joy, is there really anything else that you want? A husband, she says. Hey, you know what? I have to tell you, I spent 13 years of my clinical career doing child custody evaluations for the court. And I met a lot of people who were very desperate to get rid of the husband. Why would you want a husband? Why would you want money. Why would you want any of those things we say we want? Because you think that will bring you joy, happiness. In my book, I call it the feeling. Capital T, capital F. The feeling. That life is good, that you have the joy, the peace, the satisfaction. So are we clear on the 3 agendas? Actually, there's only 2. 3 voices, 2 agendas. Are we clear? All right, now a quick little strategic analysis of the enemy. Do you think that the adversary, the devil, has been around long enough to know whose side you're on? Yeah? Do you think he can tell you're sitting in a steak center right now? You think he knows which side you've declared your loyalty to be? Okay. That was my water bottle. And it landed on my toe. It's okay, I have 9 more. All right. Do you think the devil has been around long enough to know that you won't listen to him? If you know it's him. Now throw in that clarifier. If he shows up and you know exactly who it is and he's like, hey, come do this, you'll be like, get behind me, right? So let's be clear about that. Now, do you think he's also been around long enough to know that you and I and every citizen of the planet that is human has just enough destructive pride in our heart and our mind to believe one voice above all others? Which voice do we believe? God's? No. Sorry. Test it. God says, remember, the worth of souls is great. It even tells you whose opinion in the sight of God. God thinks your worth is great. What does your voice say about that? And which one do you believe? You guys, I'm a professional psychologist. Let's just test it here. You're awesome. Okay, now some of you are like, thank you. Thanks for coming to our conference, Dr. Paul. That's so nice of you. And then your own voice? Yeah, not so much. And which one do you believe? Yours. I got a PhD, you guys. And you believe yours above mine. And we believe ours above God's. When the still small voice whispers to you, let not thy heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And then your own voice says, yeah, but what if this thing happens? And we get all tied up in anxiety. Whose voice do you believe? God's or yours? Okay, do you think the adversary knows that? Okay. So, now that we've done a little strategic analysis, here's a thought. I'm not good enough. You heard that one? Heard that little voice in your head somewhere? Okay, let's run it through a couple of questions. First question, listen carefully to the question, because I ask a lot of trick questions. Whose voice does it sound like? No. Guess again. It's first person. I'm not good enough. Whose voice does it sound like? Our own. Whose agenda does it support? wait a minute. Sister Nelson gave us the discernment tool. That's not me. Whose agenda does this support? And then you will know whose voice it is. But there's a discrepancy. Wait, it's my voice. Is it? Does it support my agenda? No. Do you guys remember the Pirates of the Caribbean? Did you see the movie, the first one, the good one? Do you remember? There was a sword fight. It was very well choreographed. It was a high point of the movie. Captain Jack Sparrow, the pirate, is having a sword fight with Will Turner. And somewhere in the middle of that sword fight, Captain Jack pulls a pistol, points it right at Will. Will looks at him incredulously. You cheated. Pirate. Of course he cheated. A pirate will always bring a gun to a knife fight. What did you expect? And when I figured this out, I was a little ticked off myself. I did not give him permission to steal my voice. But whose voice does he know I'll believe? Be not deceived. If it's not your agenda, it's not you. We already know it's not the Spirit. The Spirit would never tell you that you're not good enough. In fact, who believes that? Does the Lord believe that you're not good enough? No. Does the devil believe that you're not good enough? No. He lied. Pirate. He doesn't believe that you're not good enough. You're the only one who believes that you're not good enough when you've been deceived. Don't be deceived. Can you use that? Let's go back to what the Lord continued with. You can't serve God and mammon or pirates. Pick your team. Now, this is the interesting part. And Lindy, this is the part I promised to share with you, okay? Because while Vicki and I were sitting on the Mount of Beatitudes reading the Sermon on the Mount, this stuck out. Verse 25, therefore I say unto you, oh, by the way, what does therefore mean? It comes up a lot. So be it. I think it means, look, we've been talking about all this stuff, and here's why. All right? It's like the so what. Here's a conclusion we can draw from everything that we've just talked about. So he says, you can't serve two masters. And then he says, therefore, take no thought for your life, what you will eat or drink or wear. Verse 27, which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit unto his stature? And why take ye thought, in verse 28, 31, therefore take no thought. What does this mean? Take no thought. Because as a psychologist, I can tell you, you can't take no thought. Check it out. You got thoughts going on all the time. So what is he talking about here? It goes on and concludes in verse 34, which isn't a conclusion because he didn't speak in chapters. Therefore, take no thought. Don't believe it. I think the best interpretation I can come up with is don't Worry. I love the way Dan Zadra put this. He said, worry is the misuse of imagination. Because you don't know what's coming. When the Lord said, take no thought for tomorrow, he's like, look, I've read the book. I know who wins. Take no thought. Don't worry about all this stuff. Okay, so with that background, let's go psychology now, okay? We know what the Lord told us on the Sermon on the Mount, in the sermon. Did I mention that I read the Sermon on the Mount? On the Mount. That's a neat trip if you ever get a chance to do that. Okay, let's go psychology. This term, metacognition. Have you heard this one? Don't feel bad if you haven't. It's a made-up word. We make up words in psychology. It makes us feel smart. And this is one of them, okay? And if you break it down, cognition means thinking. Metacognition is a higher level. It's thinking about thinking. Do you notice that you can do this? And be careful with it. You can hurt yourself. Notice that you can do it. You can think about your thinking. This is me illuminating the obvious again. Metacognition creates a space. In that space is where choice exists. I'll say that once more. Metacognition creates a space. In that space is where choice exists. And until you see it as a choice, it's not. You will roll with your programming. It's called neural pathways. Programming, like English. I mentioned that we're speaking English, and now you can see that again. It's obvious. I was programmed to speak English by people who did not give me a choice. Anybody else in that category? Yeah, now, I'm really good at English, but I'm also fluent in Finnish, which I was not programmed for. I chose to speak Finnish after I got a letter from President Kimball. I chose to speak Finnish, and then I had to practice, right? I had to hire. I signed up for some classes. Let's just say that. Went to the MTC, got to Finland, figured out it was the wrong language they taught me in MTC, because it didn't sound anything like my teachers. But if you've ever learned a second language, you know what it's like to reprogram your brain, and it's not easy. The principles I'm going to share with you today will put you back in choice when it comes to your psychology, your emotions, your relationships, everything that's driven by your mind. And you can reprogram it, just like you can learn Finnish. All right? So don't assume that simple and easy are the same thing. They're not. These are simple principles, and it will take some work. No apologies. If you want the easy stuff, I'll have to send you to somebody else. But if you want what works, pay attention. This is the operating instructions for the equipment, all right, of your own mind. I think you're going to see it as you turn on your metacognition, and let's look at the model. Here we go. It is what it is. I know, that's annoying, depending on who's saying it and why. But for today, all it means is the way things are. Okay? It's where you are, it's who you're with, it's what you have, it's the way things are without changing anything. It is what it is. And your what it is includes whatever it is. All right. Now, This will make more sense if I put it in a little context for you. I had the honor and privilege of speaking for the Youth Leadership Conference in Orlando, Florida, for the National Speakers Association. And while I was waiting for my chance to present, I got to listen to this lady. Anybody recognize Jeannie Robertson? Left Brain is her husband. And we've lost both of them in the last couple of years, tragically. But they are some of my favorite people, and I had the chance to sit on the front row as Jeannie Robertson was speaking before I did in this conference. And if you don't know Jeannie, go to YouTube and do yourself a favor. She is the funniest. I'm 6'2", thick Southern accent, G-rated, family-friendly comedian. Okay, she is a hoot. And I'm on the front row with Jeannie. I get a text message. Now, if any of you have been in one of Jeannie's presentations, you do not take out your phone and start scrolling through text, especially if you're on the front row. She will call you out. You become part of the show. I don't want to go there. But I got a little notification on my Fitbit. You know, the little short version that tells you who it's from, and you get the first sentence. I look down at my watch and I see this. This is from my sister Melanie. It says, I wanted you to know that Talon had an accident last night. He was on his annual volunteer first responder TIMP weekend and slipped and fell off a 30-foot ... You know what ... means. There's more. But you don't get it here. You have to go to your phone. I'm not going to go to my phone. Not with Jeannie right in front of me. I don't even know what she said after that. I'm sure it was brilliant because I was distracted by this little family. This is Talon. He is married to my niece, Katrina. That's their little baby Sage with him, taken about 2 weeks before the accident. My own father lost his dad to an accident when Dad was 5. Good friend of mine crashed his plane in Utah Lake a little over a decade ago, leaving his wife and family without a husband and father. And now I'm getting this text from my sister. Well, Jeannie finished up, and I slipped out into the hall because I've got a phone call to make. I don't even know if I'm going to be speaking. I may be getting an early flight back. Before making the call, though, I'm going to read the text message, wouldn't you? Here's an actual screenshot of that text. Pick up where we left off. Slipped and fell off of a 30-foot waterfall and broke both of his ankles and seriously injured his knee. They could use your prayers. How did you feel when I shared the rest of the message with you? Were you relieved? Now, were you actually relieved, or were you pretending to be relieved? Yeah, me too, okay? So just by the show of hands, who's feeling good about this outcome? What is wrong with you people? But my nephew breaks both of his ankles, and you're feeling happy about this. It's okay. You're not sick and demented, necessarily. Not from this. Let's look at what your brain was doing. I want you to see it. Okay? What your brain is doing is called evaluation. That's just a nice little euphemism for judgment. Because you can't turn it off. You're constantly judging, right? Your brain has to evaluate what it is. So you take your what it is and you judge it. You evaluate it. Now, the word evaluation itself implies comparison with some standard. If there's any educators in the room, you'll get that. Evaluation implies comparison with some standard. And if you don't have a standard, you'll make one up. And you got a really great imagination. Here's an example of an evaluation question. Am I a tall man? Okay. You got an answer to that? Would it help if I showed you a picture of me? I think it would help. What just changed? You guys, I'm 6'2". My buddy Mark's 7'4". And tragically, we lost him about the same time we lost Jeannie. If you know Mark Eaton, he used to play center for the Utah Jazz, still holds one of the top shot blocking records for the NBA. He is a giant of a man in so many ways. Am I a tall man? Some of you are waffling now. Yeah. Just notice your answer to that question depends on who or what you compare me to. And you're not wrong about any answer. Just notice that it's based on some comparison with whatever standard you picked. Notice that. So let's go back to our model. It is what it is. And in the example I shared with you, what it is two compound fractures, both ankles. Oh, and a messed up knee. I keep forgetting that part. It is what it is. Can you imagine anything better than that? One ankle. Okay, arguably. But we can do better than that, right? Can you imagine a scenario where no injury occurs? No accident occurs. Everything goes just like I planned it to, which is how my life rolls. No, that's La La Land. But we can imagine it. That's my point. You can always imagine something better. Now, when we take what it is, two compound fractures, both ankles, and we compare it to something better like one broken ankle, like no injuries at all, how do we feel about two broken ankles? It sucks. I'm sorry, can I say sucks here? Okay. And you're always right about how you feel. Put that in your notes somewhere. A clinical psychologist just said. You're always right. Yes, sucks. You're always right about how you feel. How you feel is 100% consistent with the way your mind is doing this process. It really does suck compared to no broken ankles. Agree? So notice that. Now you're probably getting ahead of me. Can you imagine anything worse than two broken ankles? Don't say three. We'll kick you out of here. Okay, so now we got your imagination going. Okay, and I helped you with this because I told you what happened to my grandfather, my friend who crashed his plane. And my mind is going to, he's dead, right? Or severely injured, and we'll find him next spring. So, I know, it's off. But notice that you can imagine something worse. Now, when we take 2 broken ankles and we compare it to something far worse, like the death of that young father on Timpanogos, then how do we feel about 2 broken ankles? Woohoo! Can I get a woohoo from you guys? You felt good about this. So did I. Because I set you up for it. Okay? You're always right about how you feel. How you feel is 100% consistent with the way your mind is doing this process. Judge not. What would unrighteous judgment be? Unrighteous judgment probably would bring about misery, based on what we know about the agendas. So, look, I'm not here to tell you how to think. I just want you to notice that you are. All right? And how you feel is 100% consistent with the way your mind is doing this. Now, here's a trick question. Please remember I warned you, it's a trick question. How you doing? Now, notice you've got an answer to that. How you doing in your relationships? How you doing in your finances? How you doing in your business? How you doing with your kids? How you doing? Now, notice that you've got some answers to that. And your answers are based on some standard that you picked. Look, what it is all you got. Don't take my word for this. I want you to just see if that's true. Right, is that an okay assumption? What? I'm not saying it's all you could have. We're getting to that. What it is all you've got. And what it is always, my editor told me to always avoid the word always. What it is always between better and worse. Is that true? Okay, some of you are a little unsure about that. If that's true, then no matter how bad things seem, it could always be worse. Is that true? I've been a shrink for 30 years. You can't shock me. I've heard some of the darndest crap you can imagine. It could always be worse. Promise. Is that true the other direction? No matter how good things seem, it could always be better. Check your bank account. Now, if those assumptions are true, here we are, stuck between better and worse. But we're not done yet, okay? When the Lord said, take no thought, I think we've handled the judge not. Are we good? Judge not unrighteously. Be aware of how your brain's doing this. I'm going to give you 2 brain hacks. The first one comes next. I call it the gratitude power-up. If you will commit to do this, I promise your life gets better immediately. Who's in? Okay, the rest of you can have whatever kind of life you're having, I guess. But here we go, and that's a legitimate option. I call it 25-5. It's the gratitude power up. Put these numbers in your notes somewhere. 25-5. 5 meaning 5 days. Starting today, you make a written list of 25 things for which you are sincerely grateful. Don't make this up. You have to actually be grateful for it to put it on your list. And don't repeat anything on tomorrow's list that was on today's list. Whole new list tomorrow. Does that seem like a lot? Because it used to be 100 every day. Do you see how it works? It could always be worse. Yeah, 25 sounds easy now. All right. So 25 things today, 25 things tomorrow. Now, anybody can do a gratitude list. And there's a mistake most people make. Have you done it before? Like a gratitude journal, gratitude list? The prophet asked us to do this? Okay, so most people make a mistake, though, when they do their gratitude list, and they wimp out and they do the easy stuff. And you probably will too. I mean, family and health and puppies and rainbows and indoor plumbing. And that's fine, but those are freebies. All right? Anybody can be grateful for the easy stuff. You can have up to 12 of those every day. And the other half, 13 if you're keeping track. The other half every day has to be about the hard stuff. I want you to look for something in your life that is difficult, painful, frustrating, annoying, kicking your trash a little bit or a lot. Okay? You got a diagnosis, you got a condition, you got, what do you got? Everybody got something? Because if not, we can get you something. I mean, welcome to Earth, right? Stuff happens. In fact, I've thought maybe we should make a bumper sticker that says that or something. Anyway, the hard stuff. Now, I'm not saying you have to be grateful for the hard thing. Last month, I'm driving to my office in Orem. I've got a webinar with 200 people in 1 hour. I'm going along 8th East, and I'm almost to my office, just a couple of blocks away from the mall there in Orem. And I stopped at the red light, and I'm just thinking about these people that I'm going to be serving. And as the light turns green, and as I move into the intersection, and bam! Out of nowhere, the airbag explodes in my face. I see a flash of red off to the side. As I heard my limping truck off to the side of the road, and the dust and smoke is settling in the cab of, you know, that chalky stuff that comes out of the airbag. And I don't even know what happened. I'm checking to make sure everything's still there. And it is, thankfully. On me, my truck was, part of it was back there somewhere. What if it's that? What if you get hit by a guy going 40 miles an hour through a red light? Now, I'm not saying be grateful for the collision. I'm saying look inside of it. Open it up. See what you can find in there. An angel in a blue minivan is right behind me. She saw the whole thing. She pulls over. She says, "Are you okay?" I didn't even know. If I didn't know what happened. I said, "I think I need to call the police or something." And she said, "You just stay in your truck. I'll take care of everything. I'm going to go make sure the other guy's okay." She comes back a few minutes later. "Could you use some water? Is there anything that I can do to help you out?" I'm like, well, I didn't even realize that I was thirsty. She figured that out. It's breathing the chalk from the airbag. Right? She says, "I live a block away. I'm going to go get you some water. I'll be right back." She comes back. She stayed with me for a full hour and took care of me while the cop was taking care of all the debris over on the intersection. Am I grateful for her? Yeah. In fact, I was so grateful, I just wanted to tell her, look, thank you so much. Tell me your name. She says, it's Kate. I said, thank you, Kate. She said, I know who you are. You know who I am? She said, yeah, you saved our family about 2 years ago. I said, I saved your family? She said, we were having trouble with our 17-year-old. I went to YouTube, and your video saved our family. I had no idea who this woman was. Without the collision, I don't get to have the experience with Kate, which has blessed my life and inspired me to keep making videos. Okay, so whatever your crash is it a diagnosis? Is it a divorce? What is it? Look inside of it. What are you grateful for? And if there's any part of you that's grateful to be in this conference today, you can put that on your list, especially if it came from a difficult life circumstance. You with me? Gratitude Power Up. Do this for 5 days in a row. It saves lives. Think about why I might be telling you that. All right. Now let's go to this part, because we got to get this part in the last 5 minutes that we have together. Creation. In the book of Ether, we learn that it's by faith that all things are created. I want to come back to that in just a minute. What is to be doesn't exist yet. We haven't created it yet. So the only place it exists is in our imagination. Same imagination we're using for evaluation, by the way. Okay? But you're going to use that same beautiful mind of yours to create what is to be. And everything that's created has to be created spiritually first. How do we create spiritually? We think it up. Everything that's created is first thunk. Can you think of any exceptions? Okay, so we're going to do a quick little exercise. In 5 minutes, you need to be back here so that we can wrap up, okay? In 5 minutes, I want you to somehow think of a way and carry it out to make your life worse. Why do people laugh about that? Okay, now it's not a real assignment. Some people are like, okay, here. Would you ever do that? On purpose, I mean. We do it accidentally all the time. But notice how quickly your brain came up with half a dozen ways to pull that off. It wouldn't even take 5 minutes, would it? The human mind is so amazing. I want you to notice something. You have the power to make a mess. This is so funny when people come to my office and are like, Doc, my life is such a mess. And I'm like, yeah, you're really good at this. You're capable of making a mess. Now, this is good news. This is good news, because if you can make a mess, you can make. That's good news. Now let's get back into choice. Metacognition creates a space. In that space is where choice exists. What are you going to imagine is coming? And you don't know. Test that. How you doing next week? You don't know. You've got something to do with it. Please don't forget that. But you don't know. So all you can do is imagine what is to be. And that is the spiritual creation of what is to be. I do entire trainings on that creation process. We're not going to get into that today. But notice that you don't know. When you imagine that what's coming is even worse than what you already have, how do you feel? This, my friends, is anxiety. There's 30 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. It's how we define it. When you imagine that what's coming is worse than what you've already got, you're going to feel anxiety, worry, taking thought in the way the Savior referenced it. How do you feel when you imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even better than what you've already got? How do you feel? Did I lose it? We're back. Can I get a woohoo? I would label this one hope. What's coming, we don't know. We have to choose what we're going to imagine. Because what we imagine becomes the template, the blueprint, the creative material, the spiritual creation of what is to be. I've got one more brain hack for you, and then I would love to have a few of you who know who you are just pop up and distribute what you've got to this lovely audience. Would you do that? Hopefully you know who you are. They know who they are. There they go. I've got something for you. I'll show you what it is here in just a minute. Here's the brain hack. Yeah, go ahead and pass those out. I want everybody to have one of these cards. Here's the brain hack. You get a droid, okay? Anybody know the name of this one? BB-8. No, you don't get a droid, but this will remind us of how this works. How sure are you that 8 o'clock is coming? Pretty sure? Okay. How sure are you that you will be around for 8 o'clock? Almost as? Look, you've made it to every 8 o'clock so far, and there's 2 every day for those who don't get up early. 8 o'clock is coming. You're going to be around for 8 o'clock. There's only 2 possibilities. I used to think there were 3. I've eliminated the third one because I don't think it's possible for things to be exactly the same at 8 o'clock as they are right now. At the very least, you're going to be 3 hours older. That only goes one direction, I've noticed. So by your own evaluation, which you can't turn off, things have to be either better or worse by your own judgment. We already know you could make things worse. BB-8 stands for Better by 8. I invite you right now to consider what you might do in the next 3 hours to make your life better by 8. I'm not talking next week, next month, or next year. 8 o'clock. You with me? It could be just a little thing or a big thing. It's up to you. You're the creator. What could you do? Now, what do you notice your mind doing as I make that invitation? Planning, thinking, creating some possibilities. Isn't that awesome? I've got one more little story that I want to share with you, but before we get to that, the card that you should have, everybody got one? Okay, I think we have some extras too. If you want to take any extras, you're welcome to. I printed enough that you could take a few for people that you love and want to share these with. The model that I've shared with you is described in a little mini book called Portable Positivity. It's so cute, it fits in your pocket. And I walk you through what I've shared with you here today. The model that you see on the screen right now, I don't share this with every audience, but you can handle this. This is my psychological take on faith. This is faith from a psychological standpoint. Because faith is choosing to believe, and it's by faith that all things are created. The Lord says, my peace I give unto you, not as the world gives. He's not going to come and tell us, oh, everything's fine. He's going to say it is what it is. Now you choose how you judge. Judge not unrighteously, and take no thought for the things of tomorrow. This is faith. The little mini book is also yours for free. Look at the back of the card. There's a QR code there. If you'll scan that QR code, you will get a free digital download of this book. Some of you might choose to get the print version, and that's fine. You pay for the shipping, I'll send you the book. Okay? I didn't bring copies for everybody, but you can get them that way if you want, and the digital copy is free. That's on the back of your card. Possibly, you've pondered that perhaps a program or a process could predictably propel people to unprecedented personal power, productivity, profit, prosperity. That's what I'm calling portable positivity. Now, perhaps you picked up on this point, that our planet is plagued with a pandemic. Pandemic of poisonous pessimism. The popular perception of painful or perturbing problems is pathogenically paralyzing. The predominant population places pessimism on a pedestal. Now, portable positivity programs and positions people to perceive positive possibilities in painful problems. It inspires and provokes people to apply positive principles and practices, even in paralyzing predicaments, particularly in the paralyzing predicaments. Now, portable positivity isn't just a program or a fluffy philosophy. That's spelled with a PH. It's a personal preference. It's a programmed and practiced proclivity to purposefully opt for the positive from a plethora of possible perceptions. This promotes powerful personal and professional prosperity. Pernicious, pandemic, poisonous, pestilent pessimism is pummeled into powder. As professionals, parents, all people, permit, apply, promote, and popularize pathologically positive paradigms. The payoff is powerful and profound personal and professional prosperity. I am profoundly and profusely appreciative of being present with you. I'm Dr. Paul. Now that's how I close many of my keynotes. But this isn't a keynote. I came here tonight asking the Lord to bless you with His love, with His joy, with His peace. Judge not unrighteously and take no thought for all of those things that we get tied up in knots about. The Lord knows you. He loves you. And He gets exactly why your circumstances are what they are. Trust Him, have faith in Him, and love Him back. You've got this. And Jesus has you. I testify of that in His name, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you for that. think we've been well taught today, and what a great way to end it. So thank you, Dr. Brother Paul Jenkins. We appreciate you. Just a couple of announcements. We found some glasses there in the check-in room. And if you have paid for your meal, if you'll go out this door, and the rest of you that are starving, you can go out that door. I don't know, if you still want to pay for a meal, I think we still have a few left, so you can go to that back door and do that, out that side door, and be able to do that. I think that was all. There's probably something else.